Hey, Soul Stories fam. We've got a swoon-worthy love story for you today. Let's jump in and tell us, what city are you watching from? The sound of violins swelled under the crystal dome, where golden lights spilled over tables draped in pristine white linen. Hundreds of flickering candles reflected off crystal glasses, creating an atmosphere as dazzling as a classic film scene. It was the annual Winter Charity Gala, where tycoons and politicians gathered to raise funds for the city's largest children's hospital. In that lavish setting, Emma Parker sat quietly at table 18, the farthest one, right by the entrance, usually reserved for extra guests. In truth, her name wasn't even on the guest list. A close friend who volunteered had dragged her along, then rushed off to handle logistics, leaving Emma alone in a sea of designer gowns and polished smiles. Emma glanced around. The ladies and gentlemen were deep in talk about stocks, real estate, and yachts. As for her, she had nothing but a glass of water and borrowed high heels that already left her feet aching. Perfect, Emma. Just the way to end a stressful week sitting alone at a party full of strangers, wearing a second-hand dress and hoping no one notices you don't belong here, she muttered, then took a sip of water. Suddenly, whispers rippled across the hall. The host had just announced the arrival of Adrian Blackwell, CEO of Blackwell Group and the main sponsor of the gala. Every eye turned toward the tall man in a black tuxedo. He strode forward with quiet confidence, his handsome face as cold and untouchable as stone. Emma sighed. The press called Adrian the ice master of the business world. She had never imagined she'd stand near him, let alone, "Oh God, don't look this way," Emma prayed silently. And then, as if the universe were teasing her, Adrian moved through the crowd and stopped right in front of her table. "Sitting alone?" he asked, his deep voice warm enough to make her heart skip. Emma forced a smile. "Not exactly. I had company, but she's currently more in love with the backstage than with me." The corner of Adrian's mouth curved, as if amused by a decent joke. He extended his hand toward Emma. "Dance with me tonight." Emma's mouth fell open. Under the gaze of dozens of curious guests, she stammered, "Me? No way. I'm a terrible dancer, and you clearly don't want anyone stepping on your $1,000 Italian shoes." "They are Italian," Adrian replied evenly, "and I don't mind. Come on." Before Emma could protest, he pulled her to her feet. The music shifted into a waltz. Lights focused on the center of the dance floor, where Adrian placed his hand on her waist and guided her with practiced ease. "Just let me lead. All you have to do is look into my eyes," he murmured. Emma tried to keep pace, but on the very first spin, she nearly stumbled. Adrian steadied her quickly, bending close to reassure her. "Don't worry. No one's ever died from a dance." Emma burst out laughing, her tension easing. She lifted her gaze, met his storm-gray eyes, and to her surprise, felt safe. Her steps gradually fell into rhythm, her dress flaring gently with each turn. "Do you do this often?" she asked softly. "You mean rescuing women sitting alone at the last table?" Adrian tilted his head, his tone half serious, half playful. "No, but tonight I figured I'd make an exception." Emma blushed, hiding a smile. Who would have thought the famously cold CEO could joke? Whispers buzzed around the ballroom. "Who is she?" "She looks unfamiliar. Definitely not one of us." Adrian Blackwell, of all people. Emma heard it all, shrinking slightly. At once, Adrian tightened his hold and leaned closer to whisper, "Keep your head high. Tonight you're my partner. Don't let anyone make you feel small." His words burned like a quiet flame in her chest. Emma drew a deep breath, lifted her chin, and let the crystal lights wash over her. For the first time that evening, she no longer felt ordinary. The music ended amid roaring applause. Adrian bowed and brushed a courtly kiss across the back of her hand. The gesture sent the crowd into even greater frenzy. "Thank you for saying yes," he said softly. Emma giggled and replied, "Thank you for not suing me for assaulting your Italian shoes." Adrian laughed, a rare sound, as if the entire hall were witnessing something extraordinary. He released her hand, stepped back, and vanished into the crowd. Emma returned to table 18, sitting in a daze. Her water long melted to nothing but ice. His words still echoed in her mind, like a tune that wouldn't end. "Dance with me tonight." She smiled faintly, whispering to herself, well, not too bad after all. The late winter rain poured down over the city as if the sky were determined to wash away the last dust of the year. Streets shimmered under headlights, windshields fogged thick with condensation. Adrian Blackwell had just stepped out of a marathon meeting, his mind taut as a drawn string. He had meant to call his driver, but when he saw the sheets of rain like a white wall outside, he sighed, shoved his hands into his coat pockets, and decided to look for temporary shelter. On the corner ahead, an old wooden sign caught his eye. Written in white chalk were the words, Emma's Corner, Coffee and Memories. Warm golden light glowed inside, blurred by rain streaks running down the glass door. Adrian pushed it open, the bell above chiming softly. The air was instantly filled with the aroma of freshly ground coffee and sweet pastries, as though the outside world had melted away. The cafe was small, just a few wooden tables, old photos on the walls, and a guitar resting in the corner. It was so warm, so foreign to a man accustomed to the steel-cold world of boardrooms and grand halls. "Hello, what can I get you?" A woman's voice called from behind the counter. Adrian looked up and froze. The girl in a navy apron, her hair tied up loosely, her face startlingly familiar. Emma Parker, his reluctant dance partner from the charity gala. "It's you," Adrian blurted. Emma froze too. The glass in her hand nearly slipped before she slammed it down on the counter, just in time. "You!" She squinted, making sure she wasn't mistaken. "You're the man whose Italian shoes somehow survived a waltz last week?" Adrian chuckled softly. "I'll admit, you left quite an impression." Hands on her hips, Emma tried to steady herself. "Last I recall, I sent you back to your sea of gowns and champagne. Who would have thought a world-famous CEO would stumble into a tiny coffee shop like this?" "Blame the rain," Adrian shrugged, peeling off his rain-soaked coat. "I was just looking for shelter." But his gaze wandered around, curiosity flickering in his usually guarded eyes. "This place feels warm. Is it yours?" Emma hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, it's my family's cafe. Named after me, actually. Didn't expect to see you here." The air held a brief pause before Emma tilted her head, joking to cut the tension. "So, what'll it be?" "Don't tell me water, because I'm not sure I stock anything that fancy outside of a gala." Adrian's lips curved faintly. "A cappuccino. But this time, I hope no one's staring like they did at the ballroom." Emma moved with practiced ease behind the counter. Soon the rich aroma of espresso filled the space. She set the cup before him, accompanied by a small star-shaped cookie on the saucer. "On the house for rain refugees," she teased with a wink. Adrian took a sip, the bold flavor washing over his palate. He was used to machine-brewed office coffee, but this was different, strong, yet soothing. "This is really good," he said, his deep voice softer. "You made it?" "Of course," Emma shrugged. "Who else?" The bodyguard in black outside the door. Adrian laughed, a sound fuller this time, rare, especially in public. Emma noticed, surprised, though she quickly turned to wipe the counter, hiding the small smile tugging at her lips. Another couple left, and soon the cafe was nearly empty, just the two of them. The steady patter of rain outside, the ticking clock, and the lingering scent of coffee created a strangely intimate atmosphere Emma never thought she'd share with a man like Adrian. "Do you often come to places like this?" Emma asked without thinking. "Small cafes with wooden walls and a guitar in the corner?" Adrian arched a brow. "No, I usually spend my time in 30-story boardrooms with bulletproof glass." Emma laughed. "Sounds cozy." "Quite the opposite," Adrian replied, propping his chin on his hand as he looked at her. "Maybe that's why this place surprises me. You look like you belong here." Emma froze. The words struck something deep inside her. The cafe wasn't just a business. It was her parents' legacy. But she wasn't about to share that with a stranger, even a powerful one. Not yet. So she shifted the subject. "You know, there's an unspoken rule here. Every customer has to try at least one dessert. Otherwise, they'll have bad luck." Adrian raised a brow. "Sounds like a scam to sell more pastries." "Try it and see." Emma set down a small slice of cheesecake. If your company's stock rises tomorrow, you owe me a thank you. Adrian eyed the cake, then her, as if weighing the deal. Finally, he took a bite. The creamy sweetness blended seamlessly with the coffee's richness. He nodded. Fair enough. If the stock goes up, I'll come back to thank you. And if it goes down, Emma shot back. Adrian leaned back, mock serious. Then I'll come back too, to demand compensation. Emma laughed, the sound bubbling bright. Adrian's lips curved again, unrestrained this time. Outside, the rain still poured relentlessly. But inside the small cafe, two people from opposite worlds shared a light-hearted, unexpected moment if the distance between them had suddenly shrunk. When Adrian finally rose to leave, he slipped his coat back on and paused by the glass door. Thank you for the coffee and the cheesecake. His eyes lingered on her, no longer as cold as at the gala. Maybe I'll come back, rain or shine. Emma crossed her arms, feigning nonchalance. Fine, but wear different shoes next time. I'm not taking responsibility if your Italian pair gets muddy. Adrian chuckled softly, then stepped out into the rain. Emma stood behind the counter, watching his figure blur into the storm. A feeling stirred in her chest, unexpected, warm, and just a little eager. One weekend morning, as pale golden sunlight spilled across the street, Adrian showed up at Emma's corner again. Not because of the rain this time, nor by coincidence, simply because he felt like coming back was a decision even he couldn't quite explain. Emma was wiping down a wooden table by the window. Seeing his tall figure walk in, she raised a brow. Oh, it's you again. I'm starting to wonder if your company went bankrupt, since you seem to have so much free time. Adrian shrugged off his coat, offering a faint smile. The stocks are doing fine. I just thought, your coffee is better for my health than another board meeting. Emma snorted, but the corner of her lips curved slightly. Sit wherever you like, but just so you know, no more free cookies today. He chose a table near the counter where he could take in the whole space. The cafe was small yet warm. Wooden walls hung with old photos, shelves lined with worn-out books, and a guitar leaning in the corner. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, stitching patterns across the floor. The atmosphere was a world away from the sterile boardrooms he was used to. When Emma brought out his coffee, Adrian pointed to a framed photo on the wall, an old picture, slightly faded. In it, a little girl with short hair sat on the counter, holding a cup of cocoa and grinning beside a gentle-looking woman and a calm, steady man. Is that you? Adrian asked. Emma froze briefly, then nodded. Yeah, that's me when I was 6, with my parents. This place belonged to them? She smiled, a bittersweet curve. Mm-hmm. They opened it when I was little. My dad loved roasting coffee and my mom loved baking. They wanted to create a place where anyone who walked in would feel at home. Her voice slowed, warm yet tinged with a hint of sadness. They died in a car accident 4 years ago. Since then, I've been running the cafe. It hasn't been easy, but I couldn't bring myself to shut it down. Because this is all my memories, and for a lot of others too. Adrian was silent. He wasn't used to hearing such candid words so different from the calculated language of negotiations, where every sentence was crafted for advantage. Emma went on. See those old men in the corner? They come here every morning to play chess, and the students by the window practice guitar here before their street performances. Sometimes I host acoustic nights so anyone can sing. It's like a second home for many people. Adrian looked around. She was right. The customers weren't just drinking coffee. They were laughing, chatting, as if they'd known each other for years. A small boy ran up to Emma, handing her a crayon drawing of the cafe with the scrawled words, "My home." Emma laughed, ruffling his hair. Something stirred in Adrian's chest, a strange ache, warm and unsettling. He had never known home in that sense. His childhood had been spent in boarding schools and hotel dining rooms, with parents always too busy. To him, home was an address, never a place to belong. A second home, he murmured. Emma sat across from him, propping her chin in her hand. What about you? Do you have a place like that? Adrian paused, caught off guard. He wanted to say yes, But the truth was, no. After a few seconds, he shrugged. Maybe my office on the 30th floor. That's where I spend the most time. Emma burst out laughing. How can an office be a home? What, does it have a sofa to nap on? It does, but it's not comfortable. He gave a wry smile. Emma shook her head, her expression softening. You should find a real place. Or at least, drop by here sometimes. I charge less than your lawyers. Adrian laughed, rare, unguarded, almost easy. He sipped his coffee, its gentle bitterness spreading across his tongue. Something about this cafe and about Emma made him forget the outside world for a while. The bell over the door jingled again. An older woman, Mrs. Marlene, in her 60s, walked in with a basket of bread. She greeted Emma with a bright smile. Sweetheart, today's batch is fresh. Let me leave it in the corner so anyone who needs it can take some. Emma thanked her, then explained to Adrian. She bakes at home, and every week she brings bread here. Anyone struggling can take it for free. It's a tradition my parents started. Adrian watched, something indescribable rising inside him. Here things didn't run on the rules of profit, but on a simpler law, sharing and connection, a law his world never knew. He stayed longer than he had planned. By the time he left, the sun had broken through the clouds. Standing outside, Adrian glanced back at the old wooden sign. Something tugged at him, urging him to return not just for the coffee. Inside, Emma watched him through the glass. She didn't know why a famously cold CEO would spend time here, but she felt one thing clearly. His presence changed the air somehow, as if the old memories were blending into a new rhythm. Rumors spread quickly in the cafe, yet somehow Emma's corner still hadn't uncovered the little secret that Adrian Blackwell was becoming a regular. Partly because he wore a baseball cap and thick-frame glasses with no lenses straight out of an American movie, and partly because no one would imagine a top-tier CEO sitting quietly by the window, sipping cappuccino, typing away on his laptop like some freelancer. On mornings when he was free, Adrian arrived between 8:20 and 8:35. He ordered drink number, 3-inch Emma's discreet way of disguising his identity, cappuccino with minimal foam, milk steamed to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and a dusting of cocoa powder in a meaningless little symbol only the two of them understood. Emma insisted it was a smiley face. Adrian swore it looked like a profit growth chart. The first time Emma gave him a paper punch card for customer loyalty, he glanced at it and asked, "Do I need this?" "Of course," Emma replied matter-of-factly. "Even billionaires need to earn enough stamps for a free cookie." From his corner seat, Adrian observed the rhythm of the cafe. Mrs. Marlene dropping off her basket of bread for anyone in need, the old men bent over their chessboard, the students strumming guitars and fumbling through chords. In this world, there was no 10 o'clock deadline, 11 o'clock investor call, 3 o'clock budget review. Only the clink of spoons against cups, the smell of butter melting, and Emma's steady voice. "Hi, what would you like today?" Always for him, always with a knowing wink. "You know," Adrian said one morning as Emma set his cup down, "if you raise the price of cappuccinos by 10%, your monthly profit could increase by at least 7%. And if I doubled it," Emma leaned against the counter, "profits might go up 50%, but 200% of customers would run out the door. Do the math." She arched a brow, half teasing, half serious. "That's not how the calculation works." Adrian chuckled, "But I get the point. Still, have you ever tried an A/B test?" "A B test?" Emma repeated, feigning seriousness. "We have something similar. I Bei Bong, the brave little one. Taste first to see if it's too bitter." "Not the A/B I meant." Adrian shook his head, lips curving. "Set 2 different prices on 2 different days. Measure customer reactions, compare revenue." Emma propped her chin on her hand. "Fine. However, house rules require that every experiment include 1 free pastry for the operator, meaning me." Adrian couldn't hold back his laughter. "Deal. Consider it R&D cost." That was how their debates went every day. ROI versus joy, Profit margins versus the embrace of a cozy space. Adrian discussed optimization. Emma spoke about meaning. Instead of pushing them apart, the differences sparked banter, creating a curious atmosphere between them. Lively, warm, and electric. Another time, Emma placed two cakes before him. One is my mom's original cheesecake recipe. The other's a lighter version, less sugar, more healthy. Adrian sampled both seriously, jotting notes on his phone. The old recipe has richer flavor, stronger aftertaste. The new one's bland but marketable for health-conscious customers. So which do you choose? Emma asked. The old one, he said without hesitation. Emma raised her brows, grinning slyly. Then you wouldn't fit into the marketing department's survey. I'm not marketing, Adrian replied, forking another bite. I'm a regular. The words slipped out so naturally that even he paused. Emma's smile softened, like someone had lit another candle in the cafe's warm corners. One afternoon, the cafe was unusually crowded. The student group put on a mini acoustic show. A boy stumbled and spilled a whole tray of paper cups. Emma was swamped. Adrian said nothing, just took off his suit jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and bent down to clean. The old men looked up from their chessboard, whispering, "That guy looks familiar." Maybe a TV host. Emma hid a laugh. Her secret regular had suddenly transformed into a quick-handed support staff. Later, when the crowd thinned, their conversation drifted from pastries to life. Emma asked, "Your schedule's so fixed. Have you ever done something impulsive? Like skipping work midweek to see a movie at 2 p.m.? Adrian thought. No. Taken a different route home just because the sun looked nice? No. Emma handed him a small wooden spoon. Try stirring your coffee counterclockwise. Maybe life will taste brighter. He followed the instruction as focused as if he were signing a merger deal. After sipping, he paused. It does taste different. Different how? Different. Because you said so, he answered, eyes glinting with sudden mischief. Adrian's phone buzzed nonstop. Claire, his assistant. 9:30 retail strategy review, 11 o'clock legal meeting on the downtown project. He skimmed it, then flipped the screen face down. The meetings can wait 5 minutes, he said. Oh, Emma widened her eyes. The world just cracked open. A CEO postpones a meeting for a cappuccino. Not for the cappuccino, he corrected, holding her gaze longer than usual. For the person who made it. Sometimes Adrian's words made Emma's heart stumble half a beat, but she always rescued herself with a joke. Careful, regular. I might start charging extra for compliments that make my heart race. One evening, rain came again. The cafe was quiet, just the patter against the roof. Emma was closing the books, Adrian still at his usual table, staring out at the street. If the storm clears tomorrow, he said, what would you want to do? Shut everything down, Emma answered instantly. Hang fairy lights, host an acoustic night, invite everyone to tell a story they've never dared to share. Terrible for profit, Adrian remarked out of habit. Great for memories, Emma said with a smile. Would you come? He hesitated, juggling his mental calendar. I'll try. Don't try, Emma held his gaze, her voice slowing. Just come. In that moment, the distance between their two worlds shrank until everything beyond the window blurred. Adrian felt the urge to reach across the counter, touch her flour-dusted fingers. He didn't. He only said, okay. The next night, the rain had cleared. Strings of golden lights stretched across the walls. Students tuned guitars, Mrs. Marlene brought extra bread, and the old men shifted their chessboard to make room. Emma stood behind the counter looking over a scribbled song list. Adrian arrived a little late. No cap, no glasses. He paused outside as if to gather courage, then pushed the door. The bell chimed. I thought you weren't coming, Emma said, her voice feigning calm. I've learned to stir coffee counterclockwise, Adrian shrugged. Maybe it's time I learned to change my way home. That night he sat quietly while a girl sang an old ballad, her voice thin but sincere. Later, a young man shared his story of failing a scholarship but trying again anyway. The crowd laughed, applauded, and someone whistled. Adrian looked around, faces lit not just by fairy lights but by something else. Recognition. His mind, unbidden, flashed with slides of KPIs and growth charts. They suddenly felt empty. What are you thinking? Emma asked softly, setting a steaming mug of cocoa before him tonight. She had made it herself. I'm thinking, Adrian stared at the cup. Here, people invest in something financial reports can't measure. What's that? Belonging. Emma didn't answer. She only tapped her mug gently against his unspoken toast. Late at night, the crowd thinned. Emma rolled the shutters halfway down, a cold draft slipping in. Adrian helped her stack chairs. When they stood face to face on the wooden floor, the distance was close enough to catch each other's breath. Emma tilted her head. Do you have meetings tomorrow? Yes, he exhaled. A big one. So, 8:20 again? Adrian smiled. 8:20 to 8:35. Drink number third growth chart symbol. No, Emma shook her head, eyes sparkling. Smiley face. Fine, Adrian conceded. Smiley face. At the door, he turned once more. Emma. Thank you for giving me a place where I don't have to hide behind glasses and a cap. Emma leaned on the doorframe, nodding lightly. And thank you for stacking chairs like a part-timer. Two worlds, Adrian said, hand on the knob, can collide without breaking. Or, Emma corrected, collide to spark. The door closed, leaving behind the scent of cocoa and lingering guitar notes. At the counter, Adrian's loyalty card bore another stamp. Emma picked up a pen and drew a smile bigger than usual. Somewhere high on the 30th floor, tomorrow's meetings awaited. But tonight, in this little corner cafe, two worlds had brushed against each other, catching the faint, delicate sound of a new melody. That morning, Emma opened the cafe later than usual. She had tossed and turned all night, her mind spinning over a short piece of news she'd read on a local site. Major corporation planning to build a shopping mall on Maple Avenue. Construction slated for next year. The project will completely transform the old neighborhood. Maple Avenue was her street, and completely transform meant that the small shops Emma's corner included were at risk of vanishing. Emma snapped her phone shut and slammed it onto the counter. She tried making the first cappuccino of the day, but her hands trembled. The milk foam frothed unevenly, forming no pattern at all. That day, every customer seemed to bring in another slice of rumor. I heard they're tearing this place down to build something huge, old Mr. Harold muttered as he placed a chess piece on the board. A big supermarket, a movie theater, even a multi-level parking lot, Mrs. Marlene added as she set her basket of bread on the table, as she always did. Sounds modern, sure, but what about us? A blonde student at the window mumbled, If this cafe disappears, we won't have anywhere left to rehearse music. Emma forced a smile. It's just gossip. Nothing certain yet, but deep down she knew the unease was real. At 8:25, the familiar chime of the doorbell rang. Adrian walked in, tall frame wrapped in a dark coat, damp with morning mist. He removed his glasses, nodded lightly, as if this routine had become second nature. Emma tried to hide her tension as she set down his cappuccino with its signature smiley face. Right on time like a Swiss watch, she said. Adrian took a sip, his sharp gaze catching the folded newspaper left open on the counter. The Maple Avenue headline was clear. He knew this story long before anyone else in the cafe. In fact, he'd been in the meeting about it just the night before. Something's bothering you? Adrian asked, his tone even, though a flicker of concern slipped through. Emma sighed, sliding into the seat across from him. Have you heard about the new project? They say a big corporation is buying up the block to build a shopping mall. If it's true, this place won't survive. In that moment, Adrian felt his chest tighten. He knew exactly which project she was referring to. Maple Square the board had been debating it for months, and he, Adrian Blackwell, had been the one presiding over the table. He set his cup down, choosing his words carefully. It could just be a rumor. Don't worry too soon. But what if it's real? Emma's gaze softened as she looked around the cafe, where the students strummed guitars, Mrs. Marlene handed out free bread, and the old men bent over their chessboards. This isn't just a shop, it's a home, not just for me, but for the whole community. Adrian fell silent. Inside him, two worlds collided, the duty of a CEO to his shareholders, and the thundering of his own heart at the fear she was trying to mask. Have you thought of a backup plan? He asked, lowering his voice. Emma gave a bitter laugh. Backup plan? What, open another cafe somewhere else? Pay double the rent? I don't have that kind of money. And memories. They don't move with you. Adrian wanted to say, if you need it, I can protect this place. But he swallowed the words. If he revealed himself now, Emma would see him as the enemy, the one who had hidden the truth. That afternoon, when the cafe quieted, Emma busied herself scribbling ideas to resist the project. Hosting a fundraising concert, writing letters to the district council, gathering signatures from locals. Adrian sat in his corner, laptop open but idle. Instead of financial reports, his eyes tracked Emma's every move, the way she bent over to wipe a table, the strained smile she gave customers, the determined set of her face as she scrawled the words, "Save our corner." In his mind, two columns formed: corporation, profit, redevelopment, shareholder trust. Emma, memories, community, a second home. There was no calculation to reconcile the two unless he chose one side over the other. Before leaving, Adrian approached the counter. Emma, he said softly. She looked up, tired but with eyes still bright. Yes? He hesitated, then said, whatever happens, you won't face it alone. Emma frowned slightly, surprised. What do you mean by that? Adrian pressed his lips together, shaking his head. I mean, you have support. Look around, everyone here is on your side. Emma followed his glance. Mrs. Marlene, Mr. Harold, and the students. Her chest eased a little. She smiled faintly, though her thoughts still tangled. Thank you, she whispered. Adrian nodded and stepped outside. The door closed, the bell chiming into silence. Outside, the wind whipped cold, tugging at his coat. He pulled out his phone, typing quickly to his assistant. Delay Maple Square media release. I want to review the plan. His fingers hovered, then added another line. Find an option to preserve part of the block. Priority address, 1216. Emma still had no idea who was truly behind the project. She only knew one thing. This cafe was her heart, and she would fight for it. As for Adrian, caught between two identities, an unyielding CEO and the regular, by the window, he chose silence, at least for now. And in that silence, a secret grew heavier, threatening to snap the fragile thread drawing their two worlds together. The to-do list for the Share Your Story night was speckled with empty checkboxes. String up the lights, test the sound, arrange seating, direct foot traffic, set up the donation board, bake pastries. Emma stood before the corkboard, pen in hand, reminding herself, keep it solid, don't get flashy. At 8:22, the bell rang. Adrian walked in carrying a neat toolkit, duct tape, wire cutters, zip ties, and a spare power strip. Sleeves rolled up, his voice calm. Do you need someone to climb the ladder or hold it? Someone who won't drop the lights on customers' heads, Emma replied, already smiling. Whichever role you think you can handle. He set the ladder, tested its balance, then climbed. Emma stood below, hands steadying the frame. Afternoon sunlight poured in, casting their shadows across the brick wall. He threaded the lights smoothly, with no fumbling or showing off. Done this before? Emma asked. Handled worse, he answered. This is simple. If the wire's short, extend it. If the nail's loose, hammer it back. I wish everything had solutions that straightforward. You also have to stand on the right rung, Emma tilted her head. Not too high, not too low. And have someone holding the ladder, he added without looking down. Of course, Emma said, gripping tighter. That's my part. The lights flickered on section by section. No cheers, just a shared nod, like signing off on a small plan they had completed together. Next was audio. Emma plugged a mic into the borrowed speaker and tested. 1, 2, 3. The sound crackled. Adrian took the mic, adjusted gain, and EQ. He spoke evenly. Tomorrow night, if you're telling a story, step in half a beat slower. If you're singing, signal before the chorus. His voice was low, clear, precise. Emma blinked. You've done this before? No, but I've presented to people with less patience than your audience, he said coolly. Then maybe you can open tomorrow with a line for me? Emma teased. I'll be in the back. If the mic screeches, I'll fix it. The opening should be yours. Emma didn't press. The way he chose his role, not grabbing the spotlight, but ready to handle trouble, gave her a sense that the cafe felt less fragile. As evening quieted, they moved behind the counter. Emma showed him how to pull an espresso shot. Grind a bit finer, tamp evenly. 27 to 30 seconds is perfect. He followed precisely. The first shot came out too strong. The second balanced better. No theatrics, just brief, accurate observations. You learn fast, Emma said. Not everyone bothers to count seconds. Some things, if you miss by 3 seconds, you can't fix later, he said, watching the crema, smiling faintly. And because you're standing next to me. Emma poured milk, her wrist flick creating a neat heart in the foam. His turn came out imperfect but intentional, slightly crooked, thicker in the middle. Emma studied it longer than necessary. Beautiful in the way it's survived a few board meetings, she concluded, and still ends up in the right place, he said, sipping, his eyes meeting hers. Neither looked away, neither overplayed it, just a pause long enough. They sat together reviewing the names of the speakers, Mrs. Marlene, Mr. Harold, Miguel the cobbler, the students, and a shy girl planning to read about her first time singing in public. Emma read the names. Adrian asked, "What order keeps the energy steady?" "Start with a short story, slip in music between. Don't put 3 people in a row talking about money. Then place Miguel between the 2 songs," Adrian noted. "End with someone thanking everyone, then invite them to sign." "Will you do it?" Emma asked, half challenging. "I'll hand the mic to the right person," he shrugged, and checked the cables one last time. Emma glanced from the list to him. Some men entered a place to be seen. Adrian entered to make sure it worked. The trust she felt was rare to grant, so came soon easier than she'd expected. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced once, silenced it, and flipped it face down. "Aren't you busy?" "You can go, I can handle the rest," Emma said. "I'll stay until you finish," he replied. "Busy or not, you still choose one thing at a time." Emma let out a small laugh. "Sounds like management philosophy. Also, late-night coffee philosophy." He checked the clock. "After 9, only half a shot. Tonight, make it full. I need to stay sharp. Then tomorrow I'll make you tea," he said, "for your heart's sake." The conversation wasn't about grand promises, just a chain of small, calm choices made at the right moment. Maybe that's how people grow. Before closing, Emma tested the lights one more time. Golden glow spilled over the darkened wooden tables. Standing in the center, she pictured the room full of people, stories, laughter, and the occasional low, a place where no one felt out of place. "What if I get nervous tomorrow?" she asked without turning. "Look at the left row," Adrian said. "There'll be someone nodding at the right time." "A regular?" "A regular," he confirmed, like signing the last line of their 2-person minutes. Emma turned back. "Thank you not for the spare power strip, but for staying long enough that I forgot I was nervous. And thank you," he said, hand on the counter's edge, "for letting me stay long." They didn't touch hands, didn't hug, just a clear, steady nod. When Emma locked up, the night air carried a faint trace of rain. Adrian stood beneath the awning, speaking slowly. "One thing I've learned lately, sometimes the solution isn't building new, but keeping the core intact and reinforcing the worn parts." Emma understood. He meant the lights, the cafe, and maybe themselves. "Then tomorrow we'll reinforce it," she said. "The rest, let people tell." Adrian nodded. "See you at the window seat." "See you at the mixer," Emma smiled. "Don't let the mic screech." "I won't let you cover your ears," he said, voice low. He stepped into the street. Emma watched until his figure melted into the glow. She turned back inside, checking off more boxes on the board. Not many, but enough to make the night shorter. On the counter, 2 lattes cooled, their foam hearts fading, but still visible at the edges, like warmth that lingered without needing to shout. Outside, Maple Avenue lay quiet before a noisy day. Inside, Emma practiced her opening lines under her breath. She wasn't praying for a miracle. She only wanted each person walking in to look around and realize, this is where I belong. And if anyone's hands trembled holding the mic, there would be one man at the window seat, nodding at the right time, enough to make even a heart hardened by too many audits stir. Loving this story. This story belongs to Soul Stories. If you see it anywhere else, please come back to our official channel to enjoy it in full. The night of Share Your Story arrived. The air was cold, but Maple Avenue glowed like a festival. Outside Emma's corner, fairy lights framed the doorway, and a wooden sign bore the handwritten words, "Tell your story." Inside, wooden tables had been pushed neatly together, chairs squeezed close to fit more people. The scent of cookies, bread, and hot coffee filled the air. Emma wore a simple beige dress with an old cardigan draped over her shoulders. Her movements were busy, but her eyes shone bright with faith. Adrian sat at his familiar window seat. No cap, no glasses this time. Tonight, he didn't want to hide. He just wanted to witness everything. The evening opened with the strum of an acoustic guitar. A student shared the courage he had found performing here for the first time. Mrs. Marlene spoke of 10 years ago, when her husband died, and how this place carried her through the loneliness. Miguel the cobbler told of the day his son got his first job, how the whole neighborhood had gathered in this cafe to celebrate. The stories were simple but true, filling the room with laughter and tears. Adrian looked around, seeing every face light up. Old Mr. Harold rested his hand on the chessboard, nodding as he called the cafe a second home. In the golden glow, Adrian felt something rare. Here, no one was calculating. They shared. They held one another up. And he, a man whose life had been ruled by balance sheets, felt a sharp ache in his chest. This wasn't just a cafe. This was a piece of their lives. Halfway through, a local reporter pushed in, camera swinging from his neck. He thrust a microphone at Emma. "You're the owner, right? Did you know that Blackwell Group has just filed to acquire this entire block? What's your response?" The room froze. The name Blackwell cracked like a gavel. Emma stiffened, then forced a polite smile. "I believe the community has a voice, and tonight we're here simply to share memories." The reporter tried to press, but was nudged outside. The stories continued, but the mood had shifted. A few curious glances drifted toward Adrian, because they had recognized his name. Emma turned. Her hand trembled when she saw Adrian rise, his eyes not looking away. After the program, guests slowly departed. Emma cleared tables, steadying herself, but when Adrian approached, she couldn't hold back. "Blackwell Group." Her voice cracked. "That is you?" Adrian opened his mouth, not denying it. "Emma, let me explain." "Oh, God." She let out a bitter laugh. "All these days, you sat here listening to me talk about my past, my parents, my fears, while you're the very man trying to take this place away?" "I'm not trying to take it," he rushed out. "The project was approved before." "You're the chairman." Emma's voice cut sharp as glass. "Nothing happens without you knowing." "So all of this, helping with lights, pulling shots of coffee, listening to people's stories, was it all a lie? Just some performance to ease your conscience?" Adrian shook his head hard, panic flickering in his eyes. "No, Emma. I truly—" He faltered, words crumbling into nothing against the wall of her disappointment. Emma straightened, her tone colder than ever. "You know, I thought I could trust you, that beneath the icy mask, you were good. It turns out I was just a fool to let you watch. Regular? Number. You never belonged here." The air grew heavy. The fairy lights still twinkled overhead, but they had lost their warmth. Adrian lifted a hand, reaching toward her shoulder, but Emma stepped back. "Get out. Right now." He froze, more lost than he had ever been. He, the man who commanded boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, had no words to keep a single woman from walking away. "Emma, please. Out." Her voice slammed the door shut. Adrian stepped outside. The night wind bit cold, whipping his coat. The bell jingled behind him, sharp as a sentence passed. Under the awning, he looked back through the glass. Emma's back was turned, wiping down tables, her posture rigid but trembling. He pulled out his phone. The screen lit with a flood of messages. "Maple Square Project. Emergency meeting, 9 a.m. tomorrow." He clenched it tight, then powered it off. Decisions had always been clear before. Whichever number was right, he chose. But now, between the profit column and Emma's eyes, he no longer knew which was right. Emma sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. The cafe was silent, broken only by the tick of the clock. Every detail, the wooden walls, the old guitar, the chalkboard menu, suddenly seemed stained with betrayal. "Regular," she whispered hoarsely. "Turns out it was just A roll. A tear splashed onto the wooden table. She wiped it quickly, drew a deep breath, and rose to lock the door. If this cafe was truly destined to vanish, she would fight to the end, without the help of a man living two lives. Monday morning, the 30th floor boardroom of Blackwell Group blazed under fluorescent lights. Glass walls framed the city, traffic below nothing more than streams of light. On the table, the Maple Square project plan sat thick and heavy, covering half the polished wood. The CFO, Mrs. Keller, opened with a firm voice. This project isn't just a shopping mall, it's a strategic milestone. Maple Avenue property values have risen 30% in the past 2 years. If we don't secure it soon, competitors will move in. We need contracts signed within the month. Another executive chimed in. The local community will resist, of course, but we already have the media playbook. Focus on economic benefits, jobs, tourism, tax revenue. All eyes turned to Adrian, the chairman, the final voice. He sat straight, fingers interlaced, face as cold and unreadable as ever. But inside, a storm raged. He remembered the acoustic night at Emma's corner, the raw guitar strumming, Mrs. Marlene's trembling voice about widowhood, old Mr. Harold declaring, "This place reminds me I still belong somewhere." Those faces, they couldn't just be reduced to affected stakeholders on a spreadsheet. "Adrian?" Mrs. Keller pressed, her eyes sharp as blades. He lifted his gaze, voice calm. "The project has potential, I won't deny it. But Maple Avenue isn't empty land. It's a living neighborhood. If we level everything, the issue won't just be PR. It could become a full-blown brand crisis." Murmurs rippled. Surprise flickered in some eyes. One director shot back. "Brand or profit, which one feeds the company? Sometimes small sacrifices are necessary for bigger goals." Adrian's hands tightened. To them, small sacrifices meant a few old shops. But to Emma, it was everything. "We'll revise the plan for redevelopment, not total demolition," Adrian concluded firmly. "We need a support fund so existing shop owners have a chance to return. I'll personally negotiate with the district council." The room fell silent for a beat, then burst into mixed reactions. Some supportive, some resistant. But the decision, at least for now, had been made. Meanwhile, down on Maple Avenue, Emma scrawled bold letters on a cardboard sign. "Save our cafe." The shop had become a rallying point. Tables stacked with flyers, a donation board by the door, customers not just drinking coffee but signing petitions. "Sweetheart, I brought more paper and pens," Mrs. Marlene said, setting down a bag. Mr. Harold waved the morning paper. "They mentioned Maple Square today. This is our chance. We need to make our voices heard." Students strung banners across the sidewalk, drawing stares from passers-by. A little boy handed Emma a new crayon drawing, the cafe standing small but proud among skyscrapers, with the words, "Don't let it disappear." Emma looked around, determination swelling inside her. She had lost her parents. She would not lose this second home. That night, Adrian drove past quietly. He saw the crowd outside, flyers in hand, acoustic music drifting from within. On the corkboard, bold words read, "Memories cannot be redeveloped." And Emma, standing at the center, her voice ringing clear. "We are not against progress, but we are against erasure. Maple Avenue is the soul of this neighborhood. And if anyone thinks they can buy that with money, they're wrong. We will fight." Thunderous applause filled the street. Emma smiled, but when she turned away, her eyes carried a flicker of sorrow, still haunted by the night she had discovered the truth. The night she had thrown Adrian out. From his car, Adrian gripped the steering wheel. He longed to go in, to say he wasn't here to destroy, that he had already fought for her in the boardroom. But Emma's words, was it all just a lie? Still echoed in his head. He feared that if he stepped inside, she would only see him as an invader, not an ally. That night, Adrian sat in his high-rise apartment, laptop open to financial reports, eyes fixed on his phone. A photo had gone viral. Emma outside the cafe, holding the Save Our Cafe sign, surrounded by dozens of neighbors. The hashtag Maple Belongs to Us spread quickly. Pride and pain tangled in him. Emma didn't know what he had said that morning, didn't know he had stood for her in the only way he could. To her, he was still the face of the man taking her home away. Adrian pressed his hand against his temple. For the first time, all his business acumen felt useless. Numbers, contracts, reports, none of it could win back Emma's trust. At Emma's corner, when the last supporter left, Emma sat alone, eyes on the Save Our Cafe sign propped against the counter. Her hands trembled slightly, but her gaze was steady. "I'll protect this place. Mom, Dad," she whispered, eyes resting on the old family photo on the wall. Far above, on the 30th floor, Adrian typed a short message to his assistant. "I'll negotiate with the council myself. Protect 1216 Maple Avenue." He didn't know if Emma would ever believe him again. But one thing was clear. If he lost that cafe, he would lose his only chance of staying in her heart. Late afternoon, the golden light of day stretched across a Maple Avenue. Emma's corner bustled as usual, posters of "Save Our Cafe" plastered over the windows. From afar, Adrian could already see the fairy lights twinkling, hear the faint strum of a guitar drifting out. With every step closer, his chest tightened. He knew, this time silence was no longer an option. He pushed the door open. The bell chimed. The air inside immediately grew heavy. A few regulars recognized him, their eyes narrowing with suspicion. Behind the counter, Emma froze mid-stroke, pen still in hand. Her face stiffened. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was ice, stripped of all the warmth of late-night cappuccinos past. Adrian stepped closer, voice deep but controlled. "Emma, I need to talk to you. Not as the chairman, but as myself." "You think separating the two makes a difference?" Emma scoffed. "You represent the world that's taking away my home. That title sticks to you like a shadow. You can't peel it off." "You think I want to take it away?" Adrian's fist clenched. "I fought to keep it, to stop the board from tearing everything down. You don't know what You did it for me?" Emma cut in, eyes blazing. "If you really cared, you would have told me the truth from the start, instead of pretending to be some regular who cared. You don't understand what betrayal feels like, Adrian." The cafe's air grew thick. Some customers shifted, but Emma gestured for them to stay silent. This battle was theirs alone. "You're right," Adrian exhaled. "I hid it, because I was afraid that if you knew, you'd never let me walk through that door." "You should be afraid," Emma shot back, her voice cracking, "because now all I see is a man living two faces." Adrian closed his eyes, then opened them, sharp but clouded with desperation. He stepped closer to the counter, his tone rough, low. "Do you know I envy you? You have something called home. Parents, memories, a community. I never had that. Since I was a kid, it's been dormitories, hotels, and short-term apartments. My house was never a place to return to, just an address." Emma stilled. The words pierced her like a blade, but also exposed a truth raw and undeniable. Adrian pressed on, voice hoarse. "When I walked into this cafe that first day, I thought it was just to get out of the rain. But then I saw the people here, saw the way you protect it, saw that little boy's drawing scrawled with the word home. For the first time in my life, I wanted to belong somewhere. I wasn't pretending, Emma. Every moment with you was real." Emma bit her lip, heart pounding, but her anger still burned. "You can say that, but you're still the man who holds the power to sign it all away." Adrian stepped closer, voice steady but trembling at the edges. "I would rather lose that position than lose you. I've been trying to protect both, but if I have to choose, I choose you." For a fleeting second, Emma saw it, the cold gray eyes stripped bare, filled with a fragile longing. No ruthless CEO, only a solitary man aching for the home he'd never had. But the wound inside her was still raw. Emma turned away, voice breaking. "You should go. I need time." Adrian stood still, then nodded slowly. "I'll go. But remember this. I'm not your enemy, Emma. I want to fight for this place with you." He turned and left. The bell rang again, sharp in the silence. The cafe stayed hushed, except for the pounding of Emma's heart in her chest. She placed her hand on the worn wooden counter, her mind a tangled mess. Part of her wanted to believe him. Another part recoiled in fear. But one truth she couldn't deny. When Adrian spoke of home, She had seen a loneliness so real in his eyes that it was impossible to ignore. The 30th floor boardroom of Blackwell Group blazed with white fluorescent light. The long wooden table was covered in documents. In front of Adrian lay a thick folder, bold letters stamped across the cover. Maple Square, Demolition and Redevelopment. One by one, directors spoke, their voices landing like hammers on the table. "We've delayed long enough," said Mrs. Keller, the CFO, eyes locked on Adrian. "Our investors are running out of patience. If you don't sign this week, the funding deal collapses. Are you prepared to let Blackwell Group lose hundreds of millions of dollars?" Another director added, "Mr. Chairman, you must decide, preserve a few outdated shops or preserve the future of the entire company." Adrian sat still, fingers tightening around his pen. Signing meant everything would move smoothly. The company would stand strong. His chairman's seat would be safe. But in his mind, images rose. The acoustic night at Emma's corner, the mingled laughter and tears, Emma's eyes when she said, "You represent the world that stole our home." All his life, he had never wavered at a deal. But now the pen in his hand felt heavier than iron. On Maple Avenue, Emma pressed the final poster onto the cafe's glass door. "One last night, our farewell concert." Beneath the printed words she had handwritten, "Come share your memories of the cafe. We don't say goodbye, we only say we'll remember." Students tuned their guitars, Mrs. Marlene baked extra bread, and Mr. Harold rehearsed a short speech. "We're not just losing a cafe, we're losing a part of ourselves." Emma looked around, throat tightening. Everyone tried to look hopeful, but each of them knew this night was more like a wake. She touched the photo of her parents on the wall. "I did everything I could," she whispered. "If tomorrow we must close, at least we'll part with light and music." Back in the boardroom, Adrian was surrounded by impatient eyes. Mrs. Keller shoved the folder toward him. "We need your signature. Today." Another director pressed harder. "You know very well if you refuse, the board can vote you out. Compassion doesn't hold stock prices." Adrian drew in a long breath. Compassion or Emma? His phone buzzed. A text from Claire, his assistant. "Breaking, Maple Community hosts farewell concert for cafe. Local media covering. #, save our cafe trending." Adrian shut his eyes and Emma's voice echoed in his head. "This isn't just a cafe. This is a home for a whole community." He opened his eyes and set the pen down, but the paper remained unsigned. "No," he said slowly, "we will not sign today." The room erupted in protest. Mrs. Keller's voice cut like a whip. "Adrian, you're putting personal feelings above corporate interests?" "Maybe this time," Adrian replied firmly. "I have to." His words were resolute, but deep inside he knew. From this moment, his chairman's seat was slipping. At Emma's corner, fairy lights were tested one final time. On the tables lay dozens of handwritten notes from customers. "The first place I ever sang in public. Where I met my partner. My second home." Emma held the microphone, practicing a few lines, but her throat caught. The students handed her a warm cup of tea. "You don't have to carry this alone, Emma," one said gently. "Tonight, everyone will speak for you." She smiled faintly, warmed yet aching. Never had the fragility of her second home been clearer. Night fell. Adrian left headquarters, refusing his driver or assistant. He drove straight to Maple Avenue. From a distance, the golden glow of Emma's corner shone like a small lighthouse. In his head, the question repeated, "If I keep the company, I lose Emma. If I keep Emma, I may lose everything else." His car stopped. He sat frozen behind the wheel, knuckles white on the steering wheel. From the cafe came the shimmer of lights, the hum of guitars, the laughter of neighbors, a piece of the world he craved, but had never belonged to. Adrian whispered to himself, "Maybe it's time to choose." The guitar strummed, blending with the trembling but earnest voices of the students. Tonight, Emma's corner overflowed with people. Fairy lights glittered like tiny stars. The hallway outside jammed with listeners pressed against the glass. Local reporters had come, and a few TV crews raised their cameras. Emma held the microphone, her eyes roaming the familiar room. The brick walls, the old bookcase, her parents' photograph. She smiled faintly, though her eyes were rimmed with red. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice trembling. "This may be our last night here, but if there's one thing I believe, it's memories that never fade." Applause rolled through the cafe like a wave. Emma bowed her head, gripping the microphone tighter. Her heart ached, grief entwined with determination. If this is the end, let it blaze bright. The glass door swung open. The familiar bell chimed. Every head turned. Adrian stood there, tall, coat dark, posture straight. No disguise this time. The golden lights washed over his handsome yet unyielding face. Whispers rose, then hushed as he stepped forward. Emma froze, heart hammering. "Why are you here?" Adrian strode to the center, stopping before the microphone stand. He turned to the room, voice deep and steady. "I am Adrian Blackwell, chairman of Blackwell Group." A stir rippled. Camera flashes went off. Emma's chest clenched painfully as she clutched the mic. "Yes," Adrian continued, "my company planned the Maple Square project here. But tonight I stand before you to announce the plan to demolish Emma's Corner is canceled." Gasps broke out. Emma's eyes widened. She could hardly believe her ears. Adrian drew a breath, voice resolute. "Instead of tearing it down, Blackwell Group will fund the restoration of this place, transforming it into a cultural community space. We will upgrade its facilities, but preserve its soul. This cafe will remain a home where people gather, share stories, and create new memories." A woman burst into tears, clapping first. Then the entire room erupted. Cheers, applause, endless ovations. Camera flashes lit up the space like fireworks. Emma stood frozen, the microphone trembling in her hands. You mean it?" Adrian turned, locking eyes with her. His voice rang clear. "Yes. I'll face every objection on my board to protect this place, because it deserves to remain, and because of you." The last words were softer, meant for her alone, but his eyes, deep, unwavering, struck straight into her chest. The students lifted their guitars, shouting, "Save our cafe worked!" Mrs. Marlene wiped tears, embracing Mr. Harold. The crowd leapt, cheered, and clapped until no one remained seated. Emma stood rooted, her knuckles white around the mic. Relief and astonishment surged in her veins, tangled with the lingering sting of betrayal. Adrian noticed. He didn't rush to touch her. He only bowed respectfully to the room, then stepped back, letting the wave of joy drown the space. As the program resumed, Adrian lingered in a corner, watching quietly. Songs filled the air, golden light dancing over Emma's hair as she laughed with patrons. That smile, he knew, wasn't just for them. It was also a veil over the storm inside her. Emma glanced up and their eyes met. Across the crowd, his gaze was hers alone. In it, she saw determination and exhaustion, the look of a man who had chosen love over power. As the night waned, footsteps thinned, and the cafe emptied. Emma cleared the tables, only to find Adrian still there. "You know this means the board will turn against you, don't you?" she asked hoarsely. "I know," he nodded. "I may lose my seat as chairman. But if it means saving this place, I accept it." Emma stared at him, warmth and ache colliding in her chest. She whispered, "You're insane." Adrian smiled faintly, his eyes softening. "Maybe. But for the first time in my life, I know I'm insane for the right reason." Emma didn't reply. She only laid her hand on the counter where the last light lingered. Forgiveness hadn't yet been spoken, but a thin crack of light had already opened inside her heart. 1 year later, Maple Avenue hadn't vanished. It had been reborn. Sleek glass buildings rose in between, but at the heart of the street, the familiar wooden sign gleamed. Emma's Place, Coffee and Community. The cafe had been restored, yet its soul remained intact. The old brick walls were reinforced, wide windows invited the light, and inside there was now a cozy reading corner and a small stage for acoustic nights. Part of the neighboring building had been converted into a community library and an art gallery. Stepping inside, visitors felt both the freshness of modern design and the warmth of home. Adrian still held the title of chairman. After his bold pivot, he presented a new proposal to the board, combining commerce with culture, not destruction, but preservation, reimagined as a complex blending of business and community. The result? The project not only succeeded, but became a model. The press hailed Maple Square, where past and future meet. A foreign corporation even reached out, offering to partner and replicate the sustainable development model worldwide. To the shareholders, Adrian hadn't just preserved profits. He had elevated Blackwell Group's reputation into a pioneer of the new era. Emma stepped out from behind the counter, her gaze sweeping the lively scene. Mr. Harold teaches children to play chess. Mrs. Marlene is running a little baking class. The students are hosting their weekend music night. Business people working in the co-working space upstairs. All threads woven into one tapestry. Adrian walked over, carrying 2 cappuccinos. He set one before her, topped with a cocoa smiley face, their quiet ritual. "You still remember," Emma said, smiling softly. "I remember every detail," Adrian replied, his voice warm and steady, "because this is no longer just a cafe. This is our home." Emma looked around, pride welling inside her. They hadn't just preserved memories, they had turned them into a living legacy, nurturing an entire community. On the 1-year anniversary night, as fairy lights glowed and music swelled, Adrian suddenly held out his hand, tilting his head, his eyes half playful, half serious. "Dance with me tonight." Emma laughed, shaking her head gently. "That line again?" "This time is different," Adrian said, gaze unwavering. "Not to hide from anyone, but to begin the rest of our lives." Emma placed her hand in his. They swayed gently in the center of the room, surrounded by friends, neighbors, and golden light. In that moment, Emma saw it clearly. This was not just the love of 2 people, but the beginning of a journey, where love and community would walk hand in hand. Outside, the city lights burned bright, but among them all, Emma's place shone brightest, a symbol of memory and renewal. Adrian leaned close, whispering in her ear, repeating the words from that night long ago. This time, unshakably. "Dance with me tonight, and forever." Emma's smile glimmered, her eyes shimmering. Forever. The music rose. Amid the jubilant crowd, they held hands and began a dance with no end.